Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It is so nice. I probably wouldn't have been able to get to Hudson Yards today with a very busy day of everything else if we were in person. And so in some ways, this is providing a gift that, and to have you from Washington and Seattle and Rome, where my heart still lives, is really beautiful. And it's obviously a crazy, challenging moment. So my work for the last 10 years or so has really been about impact in all the elements of our work and life, and then connecting that up to a sense of meaning and ultimately to this higher purpose that is what sustains us as human beings. And so when Min reached out, I was thrilled to share that work because it has just been, I think, catapulted to the forefront of people's minds in the last few weeks as we all are reeling a bit from this global situation we're in. And so I wanted to talk to the power of purpose in this situation, because I think that it really is more important now than ever. And, can feel like, not now, I don't have time. I just have to survive. I just have to get the kids schooled. I just have to get my business to survive. And I get that 100%. I run a small business myself. We work with a lot of nonprofit clients and entrepreneurs. So I understand that the economic and the physical survival issues right now are real. And I know from research and from our work, again, over decades collectively and in these weeks, that there are ways to pull purpose into that and to be the purposeful people that we want to stay and to become through this challenge, without sacrificing the survival things we have to do, and indeed actually then enhancing those. So I would love for this to be interactive. I want to speak to your questions. And so just agenda-wise, what I'm thinking is I'm going to start with a mindfulness moment. I think we all need that now more than ever. It's always part of our events, but particularly important now. And then after we do that, I'm going to ask folks to just kind of check in with a word, and feel free also to put forth a question there. I'll kind of give you a moment. I want this to be useful for everyone to the greatest extent possible. And then I'll share a little bit of my thinking and the thinking of that purposeful collective, my colleagues that I'm working with. And also end with some really concrete, specific tips that we've found to be helpful for people. So that's our agenda. But before we get to doing anything, I would love to just arrive and be together. So put down any notes or phone, pencil, paper. You don't need that right now. And try to just sit wherever your home office is being right now, solidly on the ground, your feet on this earth that supports us squarely, and maybe a few shoulder rolls, even early in the morning or a little later for you, Isabella, in not a great mood. It's good to shake that off. And then as you're comfortable, close or lower your eyes. And just start breathing really deeply all the way down into your belly. It can be useful to put a few hands there on belly to remind yourself to breathe deeply. And what I want to start with is just recognizing and accepting the tension and the fear and the uncertainty in this moment. So crunch your shoulders back up to your ears, tense your thighs, your muscles, your arms, tense everything, and really lean into that uncertainty, fear, discomfort. Breathe into it. And then take a big breath out and let it all go. Maybe a little shake. We're just going to do a few more of those. Let's do 3. So deep breath in and tense and tighten and pull your shoulders up. And then let it go. Second, in and tense. And then a big out and shake and relax. And a third, in and tense. and big out, and shake it out. Maybe roll your head around, whatever you need to really let go of that last one. And now 3 more breaths. And what I want you to breathe in is the possibility and the change for the better that you're experiencing in this moment amidst everything hard and scary. Maybe it's family dinners at home. Maybe it's gratitude for those healthcare workers. Maybe it's a reduced commute, time to read, virtual happy hours. Whatever it is, breathe into some of the beauty that you're feeling and the gratitude. And out with joy for those small things. A second breath in to the small beauties and the gratitudes. And a breath out of joy and gratitude for the small things. And finally, a third breath in with gratitude and appreciation of the small things. And out with that joy and gratitude. And as you're ready, let's come back to each other. Thank you. Always good to start there. And so now, if everybody's familiar with the chat box, you should see a little feature down at the bottom with 3 little dots in a quote. And if you click that, you'll see the chat. And then on the right, just type in your name, where you are geographically, the city or town, and one word that captures kind of how you're feeling right now. That could be groggy if it's 6:30 in the morning for you. It could be cranky if you're in Rome and Isabella finally having a bad day. It could be hungry if you haven't had your breakfast yet. Whatever that word may be, just type that in on the chat box. We'll just let those come. And once you've done those, if you also if you have a top of mind question that you're hoping to hear from us, me, or each other today in this 45 minutes that we have remaining, drop that into the chat box as well. Because again, as I shared, I have, kind of an agenda, but love to weave questions in throughout as they apply or appeal. So feel free to drop that in. And hi, Linda. That's such a fun overlap. Great to see colleagues and classmates and other friends who I did not know or remember were classmates and colleagues. Awesome. So yeah, a good range of curious, grateful, awake, content, determined. I love that. This is a good moment for some determination. And Peloton, 100%. I am having my all on Peloton. If you want to follow me, Ratiya, I'd love to do that. And also just tried my first class this morning, which is another incredible online workout, mind, body, soul, spirit, great music. And they have a 2-week free trial. So definitely encourage you to be there. And I try to get to all of Natalie Kuhn's classes. She's incredible. And for those of you who don't know, now Peloton has a 90-day free trial right now. So even if you don't have the bike, you can get the app for free and do meditations, yoga, running, walking with music, stretching. They have a really fun dance cardio class that they just launched, which is a total nightmare for my uncoordinated self, but really fun sweat. So definitely try those. Awesome. So yeah, feel free to type questions that feel unrelated or not. I think purpose pretty much touches every second of our day and every cell of our being. So not too much is off topic. So I want to start, because of where we are, speaking a little bit about purpose in the pandemic. I will talk some more about our tools and frameworks more generally after that, but it feels right to address the elephant or virus in the room these days. And I want to start with a sentiment that if any of you have during school or since then interacted with Hitendra Wadhwa, you may have read Viktor Frankl's book, A Man's Search for Meaning, A Human's Search for Meaning. One of the things that he says is that despair is suffering without meaning. And so I think that's a really important sentiment to remember these days, right? Because suffering is absolutely inevitable, right? I feel monstrously privileged and blessed right now to be healthy physically, to have an incredible home and supportive family, to have, as secure as of revenue and income as entrepreneurial income ever is. But the suffering is inevitable around us, right? Whether it's directly connected to me and the uncertainty and the fear, or whether it's 1 degree removed by human life that we're losing and economic life and value and financial, assets that we're losing. So suffering is inevitable. But what we have is that how we react, right? And that meaning that we make from that suffering to avoid despair. And so in my view, this moment is not about avoiding suffering, which is, again, however we experience that, going to be inevitable, but avoiding despair. And so how can we make meaning out of the everyday moments of our life, right? How you're making coffee for your spouse, even though they drive you nuts with their conference call volume, or, your adult kids who are now home and bursting at the seams back from college, or the uncertainties about your business, or the uncertainties for your favorite cafe or yoga and their existence, right? So what are the things that you can draw meaning from? Being present for your team and helping them stay grounded in all of this. Coming up with creative ways to deliver your product and your value virtually. So I'll talk more about some of our frameworks for making meaning, but I encourage you all to think about that opportunity to add meaning to the suffering so that we avoid despair. A second thing that I want to point out about this moment is that as the world has kind of ground to a halt, a lot of Columbia MBAs who I recognize as fellow type A's and doers, we can't do a lot of the things that we often do, right? We can't show up to meetings. We can't go to the networking event. We can't do these things. And so we are left with being and who we are, which is a really powerful thing to get good at, whether we're living in a pandemic or not, right? Being able to be steady and stable and true to yourself is a life skill that will serve us all forever. But it creates some discomfort, I think, for a lot of us who are used to doing. And so as that has been falling away, I think I'm watching myself and colleagues just kind of surf that wave. And I have a great article from a colleague about that I can share afterwards. And then one more tidbit or provocation that we've been thinking about is, if this were to last forever, which it won't, we will get over this. We will come out hopefully better and stronger and healthier and more resilient. But if it were, what is one thing that you're experiencing right now that you would like to retain? Right. And so getting into thinking about, amidst all the uncertainty and fear and loss and challenge, what is one addition to your life that you've been experiencing right now that you want to keep, rather than just focusing on all the things that you're losing and you're not able to do? If anything comes to mind, feel free to put that in the chat box. It's always to see. Yeah, great family time for sure, Michelle, right? It's so different. I mean, I have 3 adult stepkids who all of a sudden we're having dinner with like 2 to 7 times a week, and it's beautiful. Being more intentional with relationships, husbands. I know my husband and I've been saying, luckily we like each other. So this has been good. And some of the distance, right? I mean, we don't invite you in Rome and Seattle and DC to Sundays because that would be a bit of a schlep, but this is beautiful. Self-time is huge, huge. right? Again, it's going from doing to that being place. What will we keep of that for ourselves? And so in conclusion on this pandemic part, I want to highlight kind of three things that I see happening that this has brought to the forefront for all of us. And the first is on that me level, the importance of having the mental tools and habits to be resilient, to stay grounded, to reduce that anxiety in an impossibly mind-blowing, difficult, unprecedented, hopefully once in a lifetime situation. Right. And so if ever we have thought that self-care or meditation or good workouts or walks in the woods, if you're lucky enough to have access to that, or just being quiet or singing in the shower or dancing by yourself, right, whatever these self practices are, have just been catapulted in importance and value right now, which again, I would suggest is a really important thing to bring out on the other side. The second thing is the we level, right? And how we interact and work with each other. And there, I think the headline is interdependence. It is a matter of life and death now, how we work together and support each other. It is not hippie. It's not woo-woo. It's not some kind of non-profiteer, save the world, green juice person thing to say that we are interconnected. Our survival depends on each other, which again, I think is a really good lesson for this world to take to heart. And finally, at the level of the world, having a sense of purpose and service right now to something bigger than ourselves is going to be, I think, literally a lifesaver, right? And so that, again, has always been true in my experience and from what I know of human psychology and human thriving. But now more than ever, it is, I am getting up earlier and more awake than ever before because of the call to do this work with people and help people come to terms and manage through this. And so whatever that is for you, again, whether it's continuing to provide nutritious food for your family to keep them sane, whether it's innovating about homeschooling, whether it's keeping kids happy with decent movies so that you can keep your team on track as a work from home parent, whatever those things are, having some notion of service is hugely important. So that's the sort of purpose in pandemic overview as I see it and some highlights. Again, I can share some of our frameworks that always work, but I want to just pause there for any other questions, thoughts, reactions to this idea of purpose in a pandemic. Anything that people want to dive deeper into? And I'll keep an eye on chat. So if something comes to you over time, type it in there. All right, so two really with a 2B, but two primary things that I wanted to share with you all from our IP and frameworks. And the first is this idea of a cycle from impact to meaning to purpose. And so impact, I think of really simply as a physics term, right? You do something and that creates another effect in the world. There is literally an impact. Everything we do has some kind of an impact, right? Every step you take flattens the rug or the moss or the grass under your feet, right? And however you show up to a meeting, whether that's in a frantic huff because you lost another supplier or with a moment of mindfulness, whatever you show up with is going to have an impact, right? And so obviously we're trying for more positive impacts throughout the course of our day as our behaviors ripple through our world. But so that's the baseline. The second piece is this meaning making, right? And so now this is taking a minute to say, I chose that meditation now today because of this group, because I wanted to ground us and bring us together, right? Or because I know that collectively we've never been together, or because I'm with my team and we have this huge opportunity and I really want to get people in a growth mindset, right? Just taking the 10 seconds to conceive of why you did something is that meaning making. And then eventually, if you make this a habit to make meaning of what you're doing, it can start to emerge some themes, right? And that's where you come up to this higher uniting sense of purpose. Right. And so I think this is important because in my experience, we talk about the presence of purpose anxiety. It can be kind of stressful and off-putting to think of like a 10-word purpose statement that you're going to etch on your gravestone one day or above your office, on the wall in permanent paint. And so I like to kind of break that down into these everyday things, right? And it's not that everything you do all day having impact is going to ladder up to that purpose, right? My purpose that I really feel even more connected to than ever is helping people to get to their unique best ways of contribution, so that together we can build healthier, fairer, more inclusive and regenerative teams, companies, communities. I also compost, right? And that's not really directly related to my purpose at all, but I make meaning out of the fact that it's a bit less food waste, releasing carbon in the landfill. And so again, I just think that breaking these down helps it get more practical. I'll close with an example on this point, which is going to the gym, right? And so the impact of going to the gym is many. It's having better abs. It's maybe meeting new people, right, in a non-coronavirus situation. It's releasing endorphins after a busy day. It's time away from the kids that you feel justified in taking. There are myriad impacts that you could derive from this time working out or in the gym. But if you don't make meaning of that and say, the great story that I heard recently was a colleague who recently became a grandfather. And, his family had been saying, Dad or Joe from the wife, you really should take off 20 or 30 pounds as you age for your heart. And he was kind of like, wah, wah, I'd rather be on my crossword or this great TV show. I don't have time to go to the gym. The day he had a grandchild was the first day that he started going to the gym every single day of his life. And he said, I want to be around. I want to be healthy and here and able to pick them up, right? And so by making that meaning of going to the gym rather than abstract heart health or losing 20 pounds, he found this higher purpose of being a present, strong, and healthy grandfather. And that was the motivation. So I think similarly, if we get into, I want to start meditating. Okay, there's science, you're stressed, so your kids are telling you should, your boss does it, and so you think that's a good idea. If you don't connect to why it really matters for you now, it's not going to be sustainable. It's just another to-do and burden. Whereas when you're able to make meaning and ladder up to some sense of purpose, it becomes joyful, right? It's this responsibility of service to yourself and your purpose that are really motivating and powerful. So that's the kind of impact, meaning, purpose cycle that I would encourage you to play with. And then the final thing I wanted to share before opening again to more questions, or we can riff on tips and tools, which I have myriad of to share happily, is this idea that we each have 6 spheres of impact in our life. And so I'm actually, if you give me a minute, since I'm here on my computer and hosting the Zoom, I'm going to pull up a graphic for those of you who can see my share. Does that come through for everybody? Give me a quick thumbs up in the video if you see that. Are you seeing this little rainbow? Yeah. Cool. So walk with me through it. Start kind of below the fold. You see self really big and central. And so these are the first 2 spheres of impact, as we call them. And so the first is self, right? And this is about staying healthy, staying well, staying sane, staying grounded through what you eat, how you sleep, how you exercise, how you meditate, how you cope, mentally, physically, spiritually with everything in your life. Because that oxygen mask metaphor, right, is that if you don't take care of yourself, you are of no service ultimately to the people around you. And so really thinking about the things we do for ourselves as having impact in the world, right? That gym example or the meditation, that is 100% a valid form of impact. Secondly, around the self, our family and friends. I think this is an area that we don't give ourselves, especially as women, probably enough credit for, right? But massively impactful to raise the next generation of empathetic humans. That is a really big impact to have on the world. Or similarly, to provide dignified aging for elders who have raised us or have done other, contributed in other ways over their life. So these are the kind of below the fold impacts, as we call them, which again, I think we underestimate and undervalue for each other and for ourselves. It's easy to think that impact has to be saving lives or quitting your job to join the Peace Corps, right? These kind of heroic Mother Teresa forms of impact, when I would suggest there are 7.3 billion of us, and we do not all need to teach reading in the South Bronx, right? We do not all need to be figuring out how to 3D print a ventilator. There are other people who are specialized in that, and they should do that while we should each stay in our lanes. So then if you look above the fold, above this gray line, there are 4 spheres of impact. And so there's little concentric circles. We start with the job, right? Most of us do spend many of our waking hours doing something, whether that's formally paid or volunteer at different times in our life. And so how are we doing that job, right? Are we teaching reading? Are we building 3D printers? Are we, creating new nonprofit models that are more financially sustainable? And then our employer, who are we doing that for, right? And so that's where I think it's powerful to think about, okay, maybe you're an accountant or a lawyer or an investment banker, and maybe that doesn't feel so warm, fuzzy impact some days. I would suggest there are ways to do it, right? Who but an accountant or a financial analyst can reveal gender gaps or racial gaps in salary at a company, for example, which is a huge impact to have if that is your skill set. But you can also look further around your employer. And so maybe you're an accountant at Patagonia, right, who is helping us all be outside with less waste and less toxic materials, for example. Or maybe you're at a pretty standard company, but you've gotten really involved in an employee resource group to help women or people of color or other underrepresented groups rise through the ranks and thrive at that company. Right. So even in very traditional for-profit, corporate settings, I just see myriad opportunities to get involved in something that is impactful, that you can make meaning of and ladder up to your purpose. It's not about quitting your day job to, go pursue the dream. And then finally, outside of that job, what about your community? Are there boards you're on? Are there informal relationships you have? Are you buying gift cards from your local, again, yoga teachers and cafes? What are the ways that you're supporting your community, formally or informally? And finally, your money, right? What are you buying or not buying? Who are you donating to? And what are you investing in? And how do they reflect the impact you want to be having in the world? So I'll come back to our video, happy to share that PDF with folks. And we have a little explainer if you want to share that on. That is our spheres of impact. The spectrum is another topic that I'll leave for another day. But I just wanted to really highlight that as a way to show and to share that regardless of your role in the world today, in the coronavirus reality, or longer term beyond it, as you look to what you want to create, there are so many ways. There are 7.3 billion very worthy purpose statements out there to be had, right? And so your work is just to identify yours and then to trickle it down to these day-to-day impacts you can be having. So that is enough, I think, of our kind of thinking and frameworks and tools. Again, I have some specific tips and resources that I really love that I'll just share briefly, and I can put them in the chat box and we can email them out. But I would invite folks at this point, definitely chat, or if you want to unmute and share reflections or thoughts, I would love that. Just super briefly, I'll share to close that this purposeful collective that has emerged, sort of visioned last August and spurred into fast action in these last 3 weeks, is a group of incredible thinkers and purpose activators like me. We have a webinar actually at 1:00 today if folks are interested about this purposeful leadership topic, taking it beyond a lot of what I shared today of our own individual purposefulness to doing that as a leader and a manager. So if you're interested in that, I can gladly send you the Eventbrite so that you can get the Zoom link to join us at 1 p.m. And that's leading into a series of events in April that will build to actually train people to be purpose activators. And so whether you're a coach or in transition or just a purpose curious leader who is thinking more about this because of the time, we'll have it'll be 3 to 4 hours worth with 2 1-hour webinars of training. We have a software tool that helps people dig into the skills that they have and the interest areas they have within impact, and then some of our frameworks and tools and exercises to help activate that. So the link I just shared on Eventbrite is for today at 1 p.m. And you can find pretty easily, I guess maybe thepurposefulcollective.com is the easiest place to see the other upcoming events. So an invitation to all of those things. Some are, it's all kind of pay what you can. Basically, there's different price points for the different activities depending on how much of our gold goes into it. Today is just a free community conversation meant to be of service. Another favorite, if you know Giving Tuesday, right? So the Tuesday after Thanksgiving has become a global movement. Not, Black Friday is about shopping, Cyber Monday is about shopping online. But then Tuesday has become a day to give to your favorite nonprofits and for nonprofits to raise money. The founder is brilliant. She just spun out of the 92nd Street Y to make Giving Tuesday an organization of its own. And they have a text line now with a daily tip that is really elegant and beautiful about helping nonprofits or other community organizations. And I'm just looking to make sure I tell you the right thing. I think you want to text you text Giving Tuesday to a code on your phone to get them. Yeah, so text Giving Tuesday to 33777. And it's just a super sweet idea each day if you're looking for that. I think some people are busier than ever right now, and other people are having some free space and time that they're looking to fill. So if that latter is you, then these are some great things, whether it's our webinar or the Giving Tuesday ideas. But yeah, those are some of the highlights I wanted, and the class and Peloton. Keep your bodies moving. I think what we're seeing and hearing more and more is, just remembering that resilience is not built in good times. And if there's anything with or without this coronavirus outbreak that the 21st century was going to require, it is resilience and reinvention and flexibility and creativity. And so this is a brutal way to get the lesson for sure. But it is universal and shared and dramatic. And so I think exactly what all three of you said, it is a time to lean in and take the lesson, of one favorite teacher has said over the last few weeks, let's stop thinking about how bad it could get and think about how good we could emerge, right? Whether that's for your new baby, congratulations, or for your business or yourself, your soul, your legacy, your family, right? Really to think about that, because there's no way to get to better without some struggle. That I just linked to about what they call the modern myth of motherhood and this relatively modern notion of mothers needing to hold it together and being responsible for infection or death of children or the family. Whereas they look, I think, about 100 years back when it was like death and disease were things that happen, that come in, that are external bodies that, of course, a mother, much less a parent or, other people could control. So that might be useful for what it's worth. I think it comes down for me, whether it's a spiritual belief or just a more humanitarian one, of the power to recognize the difference between what we can change and what we can't. So important to separate how you're feeling for yourself and what you can be feeling and doing around you. Which again is where it gets really important to understand who you are and what you have to give and do those things, right? If you lost your job and don't know where your next meal or your staff salaries are coming from, don't beat yourself up about donating to every cause that's hitting you up for it. If you're on a knowledge worker salary and have a secure future, you should be writing some checks, right? You should be pre-buying meals and things, but we don't all have to, again, we don't all have to make 3D printed ventilators. If you don't know how to do that, please don't spend your time learning. There are people who are really good. They've got this, and so that's where I think that the self-knowledge becomes so important. If you need 2 hours of meditation every day to ground yourself and let that worry pass, do everything you can to make that happen, whereas if you're an extrovert and you want to be on Zoom happy hours from 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 every night, God, please do it, because my extrovert friends want that and I don't want to do it with them. And that self-awareness, again, is a life skill that I think exactly in the busyness of life and the pressure to produce and to show up and to act. Checking out, feeling connected and grateful. Min, thank you so much for making this happen and catalyzing this group. And Rashmi, thank you for your role in it from Colombia. And looking forward to more, once we're back at Sundays, if you decide to keep doing that and stay in your mode. Amy, can't wait. Such a beautiful space that you've created. Or on Zoom.